What is the Samba-Enredo? You may have heard this term before, but you may not know what it is. I'm Philip Galinsky of Samba New York, and in this video I'll be describing from my perspective what the Samba-Enredo is and why it's so important for those of us who are samba percussionists who play in a bateria. All right, so let's begin with the term. The term Samba-Enredo can be translated literally from Portuguese into English as theme samba or maybe story samba. It's a style of samba performed by the samba schools for their carnival parades. And of course, also in that whole preparation period leading up to Carnival that includes rehearsals and shows and events. Okay, so why is it called theme samba or story samba? Because the Samba-Enredo, in its lyrics, it tells a story. Okay, so let me just mention here that if you're not familiar with what the samba schools do in their carnival parades, let's just use Rio de Janeiro as our example here, because that's the samba school tradition that I'm most familiar with. In Rio de Janeiro, every samba school each year selects a different theme for its carnival parade for that particular year. And while some samba schools may select to sort of reinterpret a past, theme from the past, and maybe even use a Samba-Enredo from the past, most of the time, most samba schools create a new theme each year. And that theme is sort of it's the overall theme for that particular samba school's parade. Each samba school has its own theme and does its own individual parade. Okay? Now, that's called an enredo, theme. Now, what the samba schools do, if they've chosen a new theme, then in terms of the Samba-Enredo, there's a contest that the samba school holds in which its composer's wing, and even maybe composers from outside the school, are able to submit candidate Samba-Enredos that lyrically describe and tell, describe that theme and tell the story that's featured in the enredo. Okay? So, and then in this contest, in the months leading up to Carnival, actually maybe starting in maybe August or September, they start to have what are called the Eliminations, in which every week maybe one Samba-Enredo, one candidate Samba-Enredo is eliminated until in October they're down to maybe 3 candidate Samba-Enredos, and that's when they have what are called the finais, the finals, in which each samba school selects its one Samba-Enredo that it will be performing in its carnival parade for that year. Okay, so even the song contest is a huge deal. Carnival isn't just the parade itself. It really takes place throughout the whole year. Okay, so the Samba-Enredo that's chosen will tell the story of the theme that's also depicted by the floats and costumes and other visual elements in the samba school's parade, maybe like dance and so forth. Okay, so that's what the Samba-Enredo is from my perspective. How can we tell that we're hearing a Samba-Enredo? What are some of its musical characteristics? Well, first of all, the Samba-Enredo tends to be fast in its tempo, or faster than most sambas that are composed for outside the carnival context. Okay, so aside from a fast tempo, its musical accompaniment includes a sound truck that comprises what? One or more lead singers, assistant or supporting singers, and of course the entire samba school is also singing along with the singers on the sound truck. So you have this massive chorus. On the sound truck, you also have the 4-string cavaquinho, which is this typical Brazilian guitar. You have the 7-string acoustic guitar and some other percussion instruments that support the sound truck. Okay? Of course, you also have the bateria, which is considered to be the heart of the samba school. The bateria is the samba percussion orchestra of the samba school. Okay? And so the sound, the musical sound of the Samba-Enredo is, from my perspective, highly exhilarating and massive. You have this massive samba percussion orchestra, you have a huge chorus, you have cavaquinho, you have guitar, and the tempos tend to be quite fast. Okay, so here, those are just some of the characteristics that distinguish the Samba-Enredo from my perspective. Also, the melody of the Samba-Enredo, the lyrics tend to be very elaborate because they're describing a theme, they're telling a story. Often they're very educational. They might be talking about a particular region of Brazil, a famous personality from history or even the current day, maybe the samba itself, maybe the Samba School. It could be really about anything, about the African roots of samba or African roots in Brazilian culture. All sorts of different themes, the Amazon. So the lyrics tend to be quite elaborate. The melody also tends to be quite elaborate. And also another typical characteristic is that the first part of the song tends to be high energy, and then there's a second part of the song in a very basic format for the Samba-Enredo, which I'll get to in the next video, in which the dynamic tends to come down, okay, and then at the end of the second part, the dynamic tends to go up again. So that's also it's not a rule, but it's a very typical characteristic of the Samba-Enredo these days, okay? So those are just some of the characteristics that distinguish the Samba-Enredo, in my opinion, okay? So now that you have an idea of what the Samba-Enredo is, in the next video, I'm going to describe what I consider to be the most basic song form of the Samba-Enredo. And I'll explain why that's so important to those of us who play in a bateria. Okay, so stay tuned for that video. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, and I'll see you in the next video.